Please, high table. One detail around 1. Don't see me. Me until around 3.
We are not hearing anything. I'm not hearing anything yet. Can you please improve on the speaker?
We can hear you very well and clear. Thank you.
All right, I can hear you now.
Thank you.
All right.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning.
A warm welcome to the 22nd LUCRID webinar holding today. I would like to apologize for starting this webinar behind.
I will thank you for a blessed day as this. Thank you for this webinar. Thank you for Landmark University. Thank you for this research team and ethics. Father, we ask that it will be a glorious event. Your name shall be glorified, and we shall learn a lot concerning this particular all-important valid topic in the field of human and biological sciences. Father, we thank you. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, we may all remain standing while we take the school anthem. Thank you all very much. You may please be seated. At this juncture, permit me to establish the protocol. I'd like to recognize the presence of the Vice Chancellor, Landmark University, Professor Charity Aremu, the Registrar, Ms. Fola Adefunke Oyinloye, the guest facilitators for this LUCRID webinar, the Dean School of Postgraduate Studies, Deans of Colleges, Deans, Student Affairs, Heads of Academic Departments, all HODs, the Professorates of Landmark University, the Chaplain, all academic and non-academic directors, members of faculty and staff, our esteemed kings and queens of Landmark University, ladies and gentlemen, you are most welcome. A round of applause for yourselves. Thank you very much. At this juncture, I'd like to invite for the welcome address, Professor O.O. Osemwenge. Please, a round of applause for him as he comes forward. Keep on clapping till he gets here. Thank you very much. You shall all be celebrated.
Thank you, the Master of Event, for this great occasion, this 22nd Landmark University webinar entitled Landmark Research Day. It is with pleasure that I, on behalf of the Landmark University Research Ethics Committee, welcome everyone present physically and virtually to this educational event, co-hosted with the Landmark Center for Research, Innovation and Development, as well as the Department of Food Science and Microbiology. Although themed Landmark Research Ethics Day, it is organized primarily to promote research ethics awareness on this campus and appreciate the role of research ethical practices in enhancing research quality and integrity relating to grant attraction and research communication in reputable journals. Therefore, my sincere and humble gratitude goes to the erudite and experienced scholars of the academia who volunteered to vocally educate us on today's occasion. Professor Walter Jiaoku of the University of Nairobi, Kenya, Mrs. Susan Ledman of the South Africa Academy of Science were searched out for this purpose from ASAF. ASAF is the Academy of Science of South Africa. While Professor Gloria Botosho from the University of Ibadan was recommended by the Nigeria Academy of Science. Today's webinar promises to be educative, insightful, possibly inspiring. Please sit back and be updated on research ethics orientation in the academia. Thank you all for attending this, and you are all welcome once again. Thank you. It is my honor at this point to invite to the podium the Vice Chancellor of Landmark University for his opening remark. For her opening remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, may we be comfortably seated. I want to warmly welcome us again to the special series of our webinar. Webinar is all about, I know people will be asking questions, how did we get here? And why are we still on this? Let me just say that we will continue in this. Why? Because the 2020 global pandemic has created a way forward for any forward-looking university, noting where we are now and how we must sustain, and not just sustain, aspire to move beyond where we are. We must continually engage meaningfully, and then maximizing the season that led us to webinar series. It is a way of continuing without creating any gap. And let me say this again, also ensuring that we engage the cost benefit of bringing in external presence to Landmark University without a physical appearance. So with this, we maximize the cost input and ensure we get the best, because anyone we are bringing on board has been tested and proved to be one of those driving academics wherever they are. And so this morning we are sure that this webinar will help us again to situate our research quest in line with Landmark University vision expectations. Now, our research quest, what are the things we are going to do there? How have we been doing it before? And what do we need to engage again? You know, being intentional at it. That's the essence of coming again this morning to sit on the platform of the webinar series of Landmark University and to ensure that we carry along the requisite faculty staff that will benefit from whatsoever presentation that is made. And so I want to warmly welcome us again this morning on behalf of the proprietor base of Landmark University, our own Chancellor, Dr. David Olani Oyedepo, and of course the Pro-Chancellor of Landmark, dear Pastor Mrs. Faith Oyedepo, and members of management. The registrar has been away on an assignment. In fact, if some of us are familiar with, well, the young generation will say they don't go Facebook. No. Their own is Insta, Twitter, I don't know what else. But for us, do you say the older generation, our place of everyday visit is the Facebook? You understand? So any of us that is familiar with that, we know that the registrar is on an assignment to Redeemers University, and we're expecting her before the close of work today. That's why she's not here. And so I appreciate members of management. Again, we have the Dean, College of Pure and Applied Sciences, who is, of course, this presentation this morning is from his college. Members of the department, members of the College of Pure and Applied Sciences that are seated here, and especially Professor Osamwege, thank you. Yeah, I want to say that he facilitated this webinar for today. And we appreciate you, sir, for the great support we receive at the management level, being part of all of this. Dear LUCRID, the photographer you didn't send for him, he's not part of this. Is what? You didn't send for him? So how are you going to capture all of this? It's also part of the answer the question so that's not asking you. You don't have CP. It doesn't matter. All of these persons that are here, they are under you. It's LUCRID webinar. You should have organized for you, but you can send me text. So we want to appreciate us for being here. All of these are captured. That's why I remember the photographer, because we don't just talk. We need evidences of whatever we do, noting where we are going, and the key essence of this series of webinars. And so on this note, I want to appreciate everyone again. Yes, why are we here? It's all about research. It's all about the ethics. And what we do in creating impact out there. Thank God for the last webinar we had here. And it was also all about research. Research is you solving problems. If our research is not in the direction of solving problems, then we do not know, do I say we know what we're doing? We are not really providing solution. Any meaningful research must solve problems. Any meaningful impact-loaded research must provide a way forward in filling an existing gap. It is because there is a gap and we need to fill that gap. That is why we call the word research. And I tell you today, developed countries, they are making their money from research. And that is why you have sponsorships. That's why you have granting bodies rising up to support impact-loaded research. And so we want to admonish that this morning the presenters are ready to open us up, to unravel what we will call the mysteries that are behind, the act of research. And so when you are carrying out research, you must also be conscious of the basic requirements in achieving a meaningful research that will be accepted globally. There is what we call internationalization of every act of academics and research. And for you to internationalize and be embraced and be accepted, there are also rules and regulations guiding such research. And that is why we look in the direction of ethics. What are the morals? What are the standards? What are the expectations that will be accepted globally? Looking at this picture just to further situate the definition, you can see the athletes, 3 of them, the first picture, they are on a race. 2 of them are following the protocols, following the line. But one of them in front just said, I can shortcut now and get there speedily. But morally, is that ethical? Does that follow the rules? The person watching is asking a lot of questions. What's happening here? 3 of you are in a race. Another person is shortcutting. Is that also still correct? So that is exactly what we are looking at in the area of research. When we are carrying out research, what is the morals? Are we doing it in a way that when the article or even your patents, whatever you want to bring up, goes out there? Because we can do anything in the confines of this IEC. But when it goes out there, it will be subjected to authority tests, quality tests. When you look at quality control, will it be all able with whatsoever we take out there, stand the test of time in asking the questions that surrounds research ethics? And so what is the professionalism? Aside morals, aside professionalism, is it really transparent? Are you sure you have not done what we call, slicing and cutting and pasting and rank zeroing? Are we sure we are following the standards that we are expected to follow? These are all of these things. But it starts with the first thing, before you start writing up, you must collect data. And so from the time of even you preparing to collect data, even you planning the research, from that time, are you sure you are following what we speak for academic transparency? So from data collection, preparing of the manuscript, preparing of the research, going to data collection and writing up, everything must go with the rules of research ethics. That's why we are here this morning. When I was stepping in, I was looking around to be sure we have postgraduate students and early researchers. So what are the key components we believe this morning's teaching will take us through? The confidentiality in research is important because you must protect whatsoever you are doing. The information source you have, so as to ensure that you are working towards protecting your final research outing. And then some of us work with animals, live plants, live living things. Are you sure you have taken consent? At times we go to the marketplace, snap pictures. If you have a learned market woman and she sees your picture anywhere, she can take you up. If you have a learned market woman and one day sees it, even in ordinary Facebook, I tell you, he or she will take you up. I say, did you seek my consent? All of these things are important in research. When you look at global acceptance, then is it new? Because when you look at research, you are feeling a gap. Are you sure you are able to meet up with some of these things? Why? Because you must protect your final write-up. Then we have talked about plagiarism tests. Thank God for CLR that gave us a workshop, especially for the postgraduate students, about 3 weeks ago under plagiarism and Turnitin, the expectations. Are you really objective? Even in the data you are collecting, how you are writing it up, are you introducing objectivity and not being biased to say, I think I saw that, I think it's about 2.3 centimeter tall, I think. Is that the correct measurement you took? All of these things are key. Then anyone can look at your data. That's why we are now talking about open data. The world is going global, open data, any little thing you do here, you able to push it for anyone to use across the globe. Openness. And then also, intellectual property has its requirements. Are you following the standards? You know, honesty, integrity, everything, putting a pointing finger, a flashlight on protection of your final document in the name of research. I am glad this morning, noting that this webinar series is going to be one of such that will help us in ensuring that, can't you use your phone to snap? In ensuring that all of these things are well addressed. And so on this note, I want to thank us for being part of this sitting this morning, noting again that the facilitators are ready for us. Thank God for the 3 facilitators that are coming on board today. And that's why we'll not leave anyone to sit here for 3 hours plus and not have something at least to refresh. And so this morning, we want to welcome Professor Jiaoku. I hope he's online. And we also have in our Miss Susan Veldaman. I hope you are also connected with us. And of course, we have our own Professor Gbadebo, our dear sister. We were glad we are receiving all of us. I had a kind of peep into what they are presenting. I tell you, today is loaded. And I want to believe that as much as you are ready for this flight, you will not remain the same in the area of research. And so thank you for coming around. And I believe it will be a most impactful session today. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Please, let's put our hands together once again. Thank you. Okay, we go straight into the business of the day. And I'll be calling on Mr. Niyi Adekoyi to read the citation of the first presenter. Thank you. Please, let's put our hands together for him.
Thank you very much. The Vice Chancellor, Ma, and distinguished participants of this 22nd webinar. I have the privilege to read the citation of Professor Walter Jiaoku. Thank you. We have him on the screen. Walter Jiaoku is a professor of medical microbiology and tropical medicine, director of KAVI Institute of Clinical Research at the University of Nairobi, extraordinary professor of medicine at Stellenbosch University, and assistant professors, School of Public Health, University of Alabama, Birmingham. He holds a bachelor's degree in medicine and PhD in medical microbiology from University of Nairobi, a master's of tropical medicine degree from Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, a postgraduate diploma in health research ethics from Stellenbosch University as a Fogarty scholar, and a master of global bioethics degree from Anahuac University in Mexico. He is also a fellow of the Africa Academy of Sciences with over 200 articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals from his research work. Thank you. He has a keen interest in health research ethics and promotion of ethical standards in conduct of health research in developing countries. The Vice Chancellor and distinguished participants, in this regard, is involved in research ethics trainings, and serves as a member of the Research Ethics Committee at Strathmore University, a private university in Nairobi. The Vice Chancellor and distinguished participants of this 22nd LUCRID Webinar Landmark University, I present to you Professor Walter Jiaoku. Let's put our hands together for him.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I was having challenges in unmuting, but now I'm fine. Thank you very, very much. And I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to join this webinar today. If I could be given rights to share my screen, or if somebody can project my presentation, please.
No, please go ahead, Prof. Share your screen.
Okay. Are you seeing the screen? Can you see my presentation?
It's fine now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much to the organizers, as I indicated. Today, we're going to discuss the research ethics in Africa, looking at the past, the present, and the future. The outline of my presentation will be as follows. I look at research ethics in Africa in the past. And then in that regard, I will first of all give an introduction to global research ethics injustices, and then the ones that in Africa, just giving examples. Then I'll look at research ethics in Africa at the moment, and then delve into the future of research ethics in Africa. So if you start with research ethics in Africa, the past, you cannot discuss research ethics without looking at the global historical injustices of the past. And we should be familiar with the Nazi doctors' experiments on concentration camp prisoners. At that time, there was war, and the Nazi doctors did a lot of unethical research on prisoners who were mostly gypsies and Jews. And this kind of research was not known to the world until after the war, when the information became evident. And as a result of that, we developed some ethical guidelines that we use up to today. During the trial of these doctors who had committed these atrocities on other humans, there were 23 defendants. 16 of them were found guilty of murder, cruelty, torture, brutalities, and other inhuman acts. 7 of them were hanged, 5 were sentenced to life imprisonment, 4 were sentenced to 10 to 20 years, and 7 were acquitted. So if you look at this picture, these are some of the research participants during that period, and you can see their faces are very worried. You didn't know what was going to happen to you. You did not consent. People just doing experiments on you. But closer, more recent, the story of the Tuskegee civil studies that occurred in the US that everybody who is interested in research ethics needs to know about. This was a study that was looking at the natural progression of the infection syphilis, which is a sexually transmitted infection. In the 1932s, there were no treatment for syphilis. So it was okay to do that study, to follow up people who are infected and see how this disease spreads and develops in somebody who is infected. This was a study that involved African-American study participants. The problem with it is that they were deceived that were getting treatment, whereas they were not on any treatment, because at that time, there was no treatment. And it is from this study we learned how syphilis progresses, that you get an ulcer, usually in the genital area or around the mouth, we call primary syphilis, then it heals, and you start developing a skin rash, what we call secondary syphilis, and later on you start developing some mental problems, what we define as tertiary syphilis. Now, the problem with this study was that in 1940s, a treatment for syphilis was discovered in the name of penicillin. The problem is that the researchers did not want to treat the study participants because if they did, the study was going to come to an end. So they continued observing these people who were in this trial without offering them treatment. And it was not until a New York Times reporter revealed what had been happening, and that is when it became public. By that time, it is recorded that about 28 people had died. There were about 100 people who had developed some forms of disability, and there are 19 cases identified of congenital syphilis. This is syphilis that would be passed from the infected mother to the unborn child. Now, as a result of these are just examples of historical injustices. As a result of this is where we get our research guidelines, our research ethics guidelines. So from the syphilis trials, from the Nazi trials, the people who had conducted these atrocities were tried in a city known as Nuremberg. And it is from this that we get the Nuremberg Code. And then we also have the Declaration of Helsinki, which was developed by the World Medical Association as a guideline for medical doctors who are involved in clinical research, not to do anything that was infringing on the rights of the study participants. From the Tuskegee study, we developed a report known as the Belmont Report. It gets its name from a city, a town in the US known as Belmont. And then from there, we have had other guidelines for conducting research on human participants. So this is a trial that took place in 1948, and the accused, as I indicated before, had different forms of sentences. What about in Africa? Have there been historical injustices in Africa? One can be tempted to believe that these things only happened in the West and not in Africa. That is not the case. I have two cases in Africa. One was by a British anesthetist who was working in Zimbabwe in the 1990s. He did some experiments on human beings that was considered to be unethical. He carried experiments on about 500 people. Majority of those were Black Zimbabweans. And he was using new drugs and anesthetics without regulatory approval and even without the patient's knowledge. So he's testing these products without letting the patients know that these were trials and it was not something that was conventional. So he was charged for conducting dangerous human trials. And during the trial, it was alleged that at least 6 patients had died from the experiments. And the trials found him guilty of professional negligence. And if you look at literature, if you look at the media, social media, the internet, this is the person who is referred to as Dr. Death because of the number of people who died as a result of his experiments. And this is Dr. Death himself and his lawyer during the trial in Zimbabwe. We are not lost to words for Nigeria because you have an experience with the Pfizer trial. This was Pfizer was testing a drug known as Trovan, which was an experimental drug against treating bacterial meningitis, which can be fatal. The trial took place in Kano in Nigeria, and the company tested the drug Trovan in 200 children with meningitis during a meningitis outbreak. The study was comparing this new drug with a standard treatment for meningitis by the name ceftriaxone. And the problem was that the control arm used inadequate doses of ceftriaxone, not the standard doses of ceftriaxone. And out of this trial, 11 children died, others suffered permanent brain damage, some even became paralyzed. And in 2001, 30 families sued Pfizer over the trial, and there was an out-of-court settlement. The investigation found that the clinical trial had not been approved by a local research ethics committee, that the families were not adequately informed, that their children were actually research participants and they were not on treatment. And as I mentioned, there was an out-of-court settlement, and Pfizer paid an undisclosed substantial compensation to the families that were affected. And this is the site where the trial was taking place. The other one is the famous Dr. Breswada. This was a doctor, oncologist in Southern Africa who presented excellent data on the treatment of breast cancer using a particular drug. The problem was that there were huge ethical issues with the study. This included the fact that there were no records that the women consented to the treatment. Many women in the treatment didn't meet study eligibility, so that put them at risk of harm. The trial was not approved by the University Research Ethics Committee. And besides that, the researcher, Dr. Breswada, had actually fabricated data, which is a research misconduct. Dr. Breswada was convicted and dismissed from his job at the University of Witwatersrand. That is the doctor himself who conducted those unethical clinical trials. So that is research ethics in Africa in the past. What about the present? Now, as we speak, most African institutions have research ethics committees. And in fact, most African countries have a national bioethics committees that oversees these institutional research ethics committees. And the format varies from one country to the other. In Kenya, for example, all the research ethics committees at the institutional level are accredited by the National Bioethics Committee. And you cannot approve a study unless you get that accreditation. In addition, there's been a lot of training opportunities for members of the research ethics committees in Africa. There are a lot of grants that have been provided for this purpose. And to just mention a few, the National Institute of Health of the US, through its Fogarty International Center and Clinical Center for Bioethics, the EDCTP, which is European and Developing Countries Clinical Trial Partnership, the Center for Global Health Research, and Wellcome Trust, just to mention a few, have provided a lot of funding opportunities for people to be trained in research ethics. So doing, members of research ethics committees in Africa have had their capacity built. In addition, we have online support. We have sites like CITI, we have WHO, we have FH120 and many others that also provide online ethics research training for research ethics committee members. What are the benefits of trained research ethics committees? One is that research participants are better protected because the people who review the research proposals can be able to identify risks that have not properly been addressed by the researchers. They can also be able to address issues of informed consent to ensure that all the research participants give their informed consent. They can also protect the research participants to ensure that there is a provision for them to withdraw from the trials at any time, should they want to do that without feeling under duress. The other thing with well-trained research ethics committees members is that you prevent the concept of ethics dumping. Ethics dumping is described as a situation where a research that cannot be conducted in research-rich settings due to the rigorous ethics oversight there is then brought to be done in resource-limited settings where there are weak research ethics oversight. So with the development and strengthening of research ethics oversight in Africa, that has reduced the risks of ethics dumping. And I just put this illustration here to give you a pictorial understanding that ethics dumping is dumping, just the way you have trash being dumped that is not needed, protocols that cannot be conducted in resource-rich countries that are then brought in this part of the world is a dumped trial. It's a dumped ethics. So we need to be careful about that. What about research ethics in the future? What do I see as a potential direction that research ethics in Africa is going to take? We have learned from the mistakes of the past. We are currently strengthening research ethics capacity and oversight, but where are we going in terms of research ethics in Africa? There are many things that we can discuss with the future of research ethics in Africa, but I have selected three that I think are most important in that regard. One is research ethics in Africa need to improve on their efficiency. At the moment, only about 10% of the health-related research problem that only 10% of research, health-related research is on problems that face 90% of the world population. And that is where Africa belongs. So we have a huge population facing serious health challenges, but the research is not geared towards those challenges just because of reasons that I'm going to talk about shortly. This phenomenon is what is known as the 10-90 gap, where only 10% of the research is on 90% of the problems. Now, Africa has a 15% of the global population. But if you look at the global clinical trials that are occurring in the world, only 2% of those clinical trials are taking place in Africa. Now, there are many reasons for this. One is infrastructure. The other one is the interest of researchers. The other is, well, the number of people who are trained to be able to conduct clinical trials and so on. But one major reason for this remains the barriers caused by the research ethics committees. When you're reviewing multi-site research proposals, they take much longer to approve in Africa than in other sites. So if you have a multi-site study, that you have some sites in Africa, some sites in Europe, some sites in North America, sometimes in Asia, you can be sure that the sites in Africa will be the last one to get their ethical approval. And in some situations, it takes as long as 6 months just to get an ethical approval for a clinical trial to be conducted in this part of the world. Now, remember that multi-site studies are competitive. You will not wait for the slowest person to board. The people who start early are able to finish, and by the time the African sites are being enrolled into the study, you find that the studies are almost done. Now, what causes these delays in research ethics reviews and approval? One of those is just that many of the ethics review committees have very few reviewers. And as a result, the few reviewers are very busy and they are stretched, they are overworked, they're not able to cope with the pressures of reviewing research proposals. Number two is just the fact that reviewers work on a voluntary basis, and the remuneration very often is poor because the institutions are not able to reward them handsomely. So it's a voluntary job. But part of the problem is that because this is not their primary job, and it is often not used as a promotion criteria, it does not receive the priority it deserves with the reviewer. So when you get a proposal to review, you're in the midst of doing other things, setting exams or marking exams or doing another research or writing a grant proposal, you will not prioritize that proposal. And unfortunately, this contributes to the delays in getting ethics approval. The other thing is lack of adequate training for research ethics committee members. Although we have done a lot in this regard, as I mentioned, through the grants that have come to Africa and through other online sources, this is still a challenge for many ethics review committees. And the other one is just limited resources. Many research ethics committees do not have a secretariat that is well stocked, and also do not have a supportive administrative structure. So how do we address these delays in research ethics review and approval? One is to recruit and train more reviewers. And I hope that research ethics committees that are represented in this forum would be able to look into that. Then we need to form more research ethics committees per institution. This is where quite a bit, these are low-lying fruits that we need to do in Africa. If you go to some top of the range universities in the world, you'll find some universities have up to 6 research ethics committees. You'll find that there's a research ethics committee that only reviews students' research. There are research ethics committees that review biomedical studies, one that reviews social behavioral sciences, one that does clinical trials, animal studies, and so on. But when you come to Africa, by and large, you find institutions with only one research ethics committee, looking into all these studies, and as a result, they're overwhelmed. One way of addressing it is to improve and increase the number of research ethics committees. The other thing is to improve compensation for time. I know our institutions might not have the resources to reward reviewers hand sampling, but you can include the work of the research ethics committee members as part of their promotion criteria. So if you're a member of research ethics committee, you should be able to get some points that gives you an edge over somebody who is not when it comes to deciding who should get a promotion and who should not. It should not be the primary reason for promotion, but it should contribute something to your promotion. The other one is generation and proper management of funds that are generated by the review research ethics committees. In my own setting, for example, the university where I work on, you find that when people pay for review of the ethics for their proposal, the money goes to a general pool. And that money is used to pay salaries, it's used to buy things at the institution. When the research ethics committee wants to reward or to compensate the people who are reviewing the proposal, there's hardly money. So that is why their compensation always remains at a very minimal level. The other area I think research ethics in Africa is going to need to address very, very keenly is data protection. As we know, the future of health research is in data. Data is needed for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and many other things where research is heading to. Now, data is being collected globally with ease, not only in Europe and North America and Asia, South America, but also in Africa. Not only that, data is being stored not locally anymore, but it's stored in the cloud. In the past, we would insist that the data that is generated by the researchers should be stored at the site, but it's becoming impossible to do that. People are now storing their data in the cloud. Many African countries, unfortunately, are still not aware of this data protection. Some have established data protection laws, like in my country, Kenya. We have the data protection law now. It was an act of 2019, but it came into law last year. And research ethics committee members, therefore, need to be familiar with the data protection laws to ensure that the research participants' data that is collected is protected. The other area is informed consent. This is an old story. You cannot talk about research ethics without looking at informed consent. So it's nothing new, but things are beginning to change. We are moving into areas where people will be required to give informed consent virtually. We have not been doing that in the past. We are also moving into electronically signing informed consent. That's something that has not been there in the past. So this raises up issues of confidentiality, just with the signing of informed consent. But we also having other forms of virtual data collection modes, like focus group discussions and in-depth interviews that used to occur on a face-to-face basis. We are moving more and more into virtual focus group discussions and in-depth interviews. And thanks to COVID, it has shown us that this is possible. But how do you ensure confidentiality of study participants in virtual focus group discussions or in-depth interviews that are done virtually? That is one area. The other area is on the breadth of informed consent. Now, more and more research is now moving into what we call broad or tiered informed consent that allows for faster growth of research. In the past, a lot of informed consent, if I participated in a particular study and I gave my informed consent, it was for that study and that study alone. My specimens, the blood or urine or whatever specimen that would be collected from me would be stored. But if I wanted, somebody wanted to use that material, they would have to seek informed consent from those study participants. And that was cumbersome and in many cases not practical. Now the world is moving to what we call a broad consent. So where I'm participating in study A, but the researchers ask me if I would be willing for my samples to be used in another study, I consent for that study now. So it broadens the consent that I'm giving. And tiered consent is also where there is a provision for those who want to do that, or there are those who want to restrict their consent to only one study, whereas others want to give, in addition to that study, they want to give a broad consent. So there's a tiered way of getting the informed consent. Now, there is recognition that the current consent process is a bit hindering to research. So for example, if you had people who had given their consent to participate in an HIV study in Nairobi in 2000, the year 2000, and if I had that blood, when COVID came and I wanted to find out, is this COVID a new disease in Kenya, or it had been there even in 2000? And I wanted to look at the samples that I had stored to look for antibodies against SARS-CoV, the virus that causes COVID. I would not be able to do that in the restricted consent form. But if the study participants had given a broad consent, 2000, when I was doing a HIV study, the researchers would easily use that sample and test to see whether there are antibodies against SARS-CoV virus, which would have been present in 2000, is only that we are not aware of. So there are benefits of having broad consent, but our research ethics committees need to look at it carefully and to ensure that the research participants understand what they're consenting to. And it's not just to the benefit of researchers, but also to the research participants. So literacy would be important for Africa, for them to be able to understand what consent they're giving. And this is still comparatively low. So although the world is moving to the broad consent mode, Africa is taking a bit of its time, understandably, because a lot of our research participants would not even fully understand what this broad consent is, but that is the future of science. In addition, the language that is often used is scientific and difficult to understand. And so if we are going to move into the broad consent mode, ethics research committees must scrutinize the language that the participants the language that is being used, so that the participants who are giving their broad consent fully understand what they're consenting to. So in summary, I just want to say that the past research ethics in Africa has documented a lot of cases of historical injustices. I've just looked at 3. The present research ethics in Africa, in most countries, is able to address adequately the issues of protecting research participants. There is room for that, but currently we have a lot of research ethics capacity to review protocols and ensure that our participants are protected. But looking into the future, Africa will require to have efficient research ethics committees that will be able to review protocols within a short turnaround time. Africa will need to have well-trained research ethics committee members to address emerging issues in ethics, such as the issues of data protection of research participants and the changing landscape in informed consent, to include issues that I've talked about, for example, the broad consenting for research participants. With this, I'll stop there. And I just want to thank all the healthcare workers who have been taking care of us during this period of COVID pandemic. Thank you very much.
Hands together once again for Professor Walter Jiaoku. That was an awesome presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. We'd like to take questions now. Are there people in the hall that has questions to ask? Or we take it. Okay. Maybe we'd like to take it at the end of the 3 presentations. So, Prof. Okay. I have one question already written. If you want to write your question, please do so as I read this. COVID-19 vaccine trials happened even in some African countries. What is your position on the ethical procedure behind these trials? Did you get that, Prof? COVID-19.
Yes, I did. I did. Thank you. I had the question.
Okay.
Yeah. So COVID vaccine clinical trials were an opportunity to actually look at some of the issues that I've talked about. If you look at the COVID vaccine trials that occurred, the sites where the COVID vaccine trials occurred were largely in Europe, North America, and also some in Asia. Africa was conspicuously absent in those trials, starting from phase 1 studies, phase 2 studies, and phase 3 studies. Africa joined these trials at the tail end. So for example, in Kenya, we have done 3 COVID vaccine trials to date, but we joined in at the end. I know South Africa also participated. I'm not sure about Nigeria. The problem that we had when the world was looking, remember COVID was a global problem and the scientists in the world were looking for a solution. And when the world was looking for a solution, Africa was reluctant to take part in those trials. And I know politicians use the term guinea pigs, that Africans are not going to be used as guinea pigs to test these vaccines. So the rest of the world participated in the trials. We got the vaccines. To our shame as Africa, when the vaccines were available and Africa was not being prioritized in getting the vaccines, Africa again was the first one to cry foul that we're not getting this vaccine. So the trials of the COVID vaccines met all the ethical standards. There have been a lot of rumors and misconception about the trials. There have been propaganda that the trials did not pass through the various stages, that they did not go through animal trials, that they did not go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but there's no truth in that. We have data, we know that these trials were conducted to the highest ethical standards. And unfortunately, Africa refused to participate. And we are lucky, and God is on our side, that COVID was not a serious disease in Africa like it was in other parts of the world. But if it had been one to us, we would have had a huge number of mortality in Africa.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for that. Thank you. Okay, any other question? Do we have questions online? None. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We'd like to go to the second presentation. And I would like to invite Mrs. Akbaluwo Jubilee as she reads the citation of the second presenter. Thank you. Let's put our hands together for her.
The Vice Chancellor, Ma, I would like to adopt the existing protocol. I have the honor this morning to read a citation of the second speaker of the 22nd webinar, Landmark University, Mrs. Susan Welts Man. Susan Welts Man was appointed to the position of Director, Scholarly Publication Unit at the Academy of Sciences in South Africa in January 2009. She is responsible to driving the open access agenda by advocating for the opening up of the entire research process, from agenda setting to the dissemination of findings. She is also responsible for raising the visibility, discoverability, and accessibility of South African scholarly journals through open access, improve the quality, research integrity, and ethics of South African research output. Susan Welts Man also finds ways and solutions to further support the development of policy frameworks in order to facilitate optimal use and access to publicly funded research. Recently, She was the co-chair of the IAP report on combating predatory journals and conferences, which was launched on the 16th of March, 2022. She received the Electronic Publishing Trust, EPT Award for her outstanding contribution to the promotion of open access in developing countries. We may want to clap, please. Early in her career, she started off as a librarian at various higher education institutes. In 2002, she moved to the South African National Library and Information Consortium, SANLIC, where she was responsible for negotiating access to commercial databases and was actively involved in promoting open access and setting up institutional repositories. She continued in this work in 2006 in an international consortium, AF.net, in other transitional and developing member countries worldwide. The Vice Chancellor, Ma, distinguished, noble participants, join me welcome Mrs. Susan Welts Man as she takes her presentation.
Good morning, colleagues. I can hear you very loud and clear. I hope you can hear me very loud and clear.
Yes, we can, Ma.
Thank you so much. Just allow me then now to share my screen. And I take it that it's visible to all. Thank you so much. Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests and speakers on this panel, thank you very much for this opportunity to join you this morning. And you're absolutely right in your observations that through webinars and Zoom, we can reach every corner of the world that we want to. And that is absolutely great. It's an absolute honor for me to be here this morning and looking forward to my presentation to you. Thank you very much for my previous speaker who spoke about research ethics. It was very interesting to listen to that. Just as a small note here on the side, we are also busy to draw up a code of conduct for research, and that pertains to the sharing of data. And then, of course, the interaction with our information regulator, our research ethic councils within the different higher education institutions, and just to sort of give a guideline as to what Professor Jiaoku has spoken about. So it's a little bit early for me to speak about that, but we are nearing the final end thereof. And as soon as we have something ready, we can share some notes again. I will wear two caps this morning. The one cap is a South African cap, and the other one is the work that we've done through the Inter-Academy panel, where we looked at predatory and unethical publishing practices. And you will see that we actually use these two terms, predatory and unethical publishing practices, very interchangeably with each other. And you will see as my presentation unfolds, why are we using it that way? I'm absolutely delighted to learn that there's some postgraduate students, some researchers, that's attending this webinar this morning, because you are the exact people that we would like to talk to show you the dangers of these predatory and unethical publishing practices. So now, wearing my South African cap, we have this research output policy, which was published in 2015. And what it does, it rewards researchers to publish in accredited journals. So that means if you publish in the accredited journal, then your institution actually gets some funds, not the authors specifically or the researchers specifically, but you generate some funds for your institution then to use for applications for any research projects, etc., etc. So there's a huge incentive for South African authors to publish. And the reason for this output policy was twofold. So the one was to increase the research output in South Africa, which it absolutely did, and I'll show you some statistics, but also to start getting a grip and to ensure quality research output. So I think this is quite strange. I'm not so sure how many other countries across the globe actually use this system. So researchers are awarded to publish in journals, and you can imagine it's really quite a huge incentive to do that. So the Department of Higher Education and Trading then accredits all journals that is indexed in the Clarivate Web of Science, the ProQuest International Bibliography of the Social Sciences. And this was added in 2003 because we found that the Web of Science did not have very good coverage of social sciences and humanities. And then the South African journals for inclusion or exclusion for subsidy purposes. So we have a South African journal, regional or countrywide list as well. And then, of course, the Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ in short, and then CELA South Africa. So this is thousands. This represents thousands and thousands of journals in which South African researchers can publish to be accredited and then to generate some funds for the institutions. So there you are. You can actually see how did our productivity increase. The first research output policy was published in 2005. Then there was an updated one in 2015. And you can just see this proverbial carrot in front of researchers' noses, what it actually did to our research output as such. You can see that it has increased almost threefold, which is quite massive. But in our studies at the Academy of Science of South Africa, we often look at research published in or research of research in South Africa. So we normally look, where do our researchers publish, in which journals, and which subject fields? Did it go up? Did it go down? Are they cited? If so, are they cited by journals within the citation indexes like Web of Science? If not, why not? What is the coverage, etc., etc. But while we were doing these studies in we published the report in 2018, we found this very, well, not strange, but it was really starting to come to the fore. And that is that our authors started to publish in predatory journals. Of course, we had to implement a system where we could distinguish between weak evidence of predatory journals and those with pretty strong evidence, etc. So you can see that in almost a 10-year period, that there was some activity in predatory journals as such. It was very small in comparison with the total output in South Africa. It was only 3.4%, which is very, very small. But it did concern us, and already some bells went off because of this whole incentivization system of ours to publish and to increase output in the system. As such. But as soon as we published this report, we noticed that publishing in predatory journals completely went down. There's still some incidences, but it is in some regards insignificant. But what we did notice, and this is a continued practice, and I hope I'm now speaking to the postgraduate students, because you've got to be very careful when you submit your manuscripts to journals. And what did we find? We found actually that there's a huge prominence and incidence of questionable publishing practices, if not unethical. We just found that the word unethical perhaps does not sit so well with us, because if you go to the dictionary, you see what is unethical, it's very strong defining words being used. So we chose to use the words questionable. So which questionable practices did we notice? So there were unacceptable levels of publication intensity by the editor or a member of the editorial board in their own journal. So we that publish quite a bit in our own journals published in South Africa, this is a very real danger. It's actually ignoring codes of best practices internationally of where one should publish, being an editor or perhaps a member of the editorial board. This is not common practice. And if you look at Code of Best Practices, it is really, they indicate that this is not a very good practice to actually follow. All unacceptable levels of publication intensity by an individual in the journal. For example, publication of excessively large number of papers, more than 2 and more in the same issue. So that's one author. So this is what we actually call salami slicing. And we see that because, of course, it generates more funds for the institution. But again, it's not common practice. If you look at Code of Best Practices, this should not be done. And then publication cartels, where 2 or more individuals, sometimes also members of the editorial board, co-author repeatedly in the same journal. So there's a real danger, and one has to be on the lookout for those. And we define this thing as questionable. So I think very quickly, I sort of want to just conclude this small first part of my presentation, and then just to remark to say that there's enormous pressure to publish and to publish fast. Of course, preferably in the very best journals, but it influences both authors and editors because of this particular pressure. So as long as authors are mostly rewarded for publishing many articles and editors are mostly rewarding for publishing them rapidly, of course, there will be new ways of gaming the traditional publication models. And there's forever inventions to models, sorry, new ways of gaming the traditional publication models will be invented more quickly than new control measures can be put into place. And that we found in our studies that we did through the Inter-Academy panel, that even if you do find out what researchers and publishers are doing, there's every time a new method or a way, or looking for gaps or for opportunities to actually con researchers into doing some unethical, or maybe into publishing in predatory journals as such. So I would like to now change my cap and talk about a study that we've done through the Inter-Academy panel, which was funded by the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. And it was also at a time, we started the study in 2020 to look at combating predatory academic journals and conferences. There were a lot in the literature starting to highlight these activities and also profiling what researchers do or what publishers do. And there was an outcry to say, this is not on, we should not be dwelling down this particular road. So just to highlight a little bit is what did we actually have a look in the study? We looked at how do we define predatory and unethical practices in academic journals and conferences. We gauged sort of what is their prevalence and impact, because do we have an idea what's happening in the different continents, countries? Is this a common practice? I mean, we in South Africa know, well, it might not be predatory journals per se, but definitely unethical practices and sort of tainting our research integrity in going forward. So understand the primary drivers or root causes. Why do we do this? I mean, this is quite a dangerous game to engage yourself in. And then examine efforts to date to combat predatory journals and conferences around the world, and provide concrete recommendations for a global strategy to address the problem and to engage all stakeholders. You will see that we engage just about everybody, research communities and academies, libraries and indexing services, publishers, funding agencies, universities and research administrators, and of course the policymakers, because we believe that we have to get to this problem from all levels and through very different lenses as such. We started with our study, with a literature study, and as I mentioned previously, there's lots out there, and lots have been published on this actually subject matter. So it was not really scarce to get a good grip on what is being considered as predatory activities and unethical practices as such. Then I think what was quite an important aspect of the study we did is we conducted a survey. And as you can see, all over the globe, people responded. And if you were one of those people who did respond to our survey, thank you very much. We do appreciate every input we could have got to our work that we had to do. So there were respondents from, there were 1,872 respondents. This represents 112 countries, as you can see right there. And what was very interesting is that over 80% of the participants perceived that predatory practices are a serious problem or on the rise in their country of work. So you can see even in the sub-Saharan Africa, you can see Nigeria is also represented right there. There was a 14% response on our questionnaire. But I'm quite sure you might ask yourself, you know, these predatory practices, is it young emerging researchers? Are they old? Are they young? Is it only in certain countries? Is it only developing countries like ours, you know, who's prone to these things? What happens in the more developed work? How do we view this? And I just want to highlight perhaps some main findings that we had from our survey, and that is that researchers at all career stages need to be on their guard. It was not just young emerging researchers that were targeted and that fell into this particular trap. Researchers in low and middle income countries are more vulnerable because the publishers out there know, and predatory publishers out there know, that our researchers in our countries are sometimes, and especially in Africa, desperate to publish their research and to get out. And that is a discussion for another time. Why is our research not being published by major publishers, etc.? I just want to acknowledge that that's an ongoing debate, but it drives what we find in predatory publishing as such. Very interesting that some disciplines are more vulnerable than others. Researchers in arts and humanities with predatory journals, but then researchers in transdisciplinary and engineering sciences with predatory conferences, because those subject fields tend to disseminate their research output through conferences more than in journals. So that was a very interesting aspect for me personally as well. But now the most alarming statistic is that at least 14% of respondents admit they have used a predatory journal or conference. And I think that for me really struck home to say, this is serious and we should advocate for good research, integrity practices and research ethics as such. What is most alarming is that this equates to 1.2 million researchers of the 8.8 million around the world who could have used predatory outlets, with billions of dollars of research costs being people, material, time, and wasted as a result. So this requires urgent attention. We asked them whether they know the participants they have published in a predatory journal. So 24% of them confirmed or didn't know if they have. But if you look at the remarks that they've made, you realize that sometimes this happened to researchers and they don't even know that they're falling into a particular trap. So they were not aware at the time that they were actually publishing in a predatory journal. Or again, this pressure to publish, they needed to advance their career. So quick and fast publishing, which would have, they hope, would have enhanced their career. So it was faster, easier, or even a cheaper option, was one remark. And most alarming They were encouraged by their peers. So we as peers to researchers has a huge responsibilities to educate, to support, and to create awareness of these predatory publishers and practices as such. So if we don't challenge unethical practices and predatory practices, the majority of respondents believe predatory practices will have a detrimental effect. 82% said that this will fuel misinformation in public policy. 69% remarked that infiltrate and undermine their whole research enterprise. And 58% commented to say that it will widen the research gap between the high income and the low income countries. So you can see the effect of engaging in these practices are major and has a long-term effect, not only for the researcher, but for the institution itself and for the system as a whole. I think what really upset me personally is when we got the anecdotes from researchers that were involved in these practices. Some were saying that wherever my CV went, people would highlight and question my predatory publications. It has become a really obvious black dot in my career. So there's no option of omitting or removing my name from these journals, and the experience was very bad. I delayed my PhD completion. I'm completely discouraged and disconnected, and I'm now trying to pick up these pieces. It's hard. And then I really regret it. Our reputations get tarnished and people start judging us for many years. And then the last one, unfortunately, I had over 20 to 25 papers sacrificed in these journals. They can't be considered for promotion, and I became a questioner. I was so ashamed. It was truly a painful experience. So you can see these anecdotes really reflect terrible news and terrible situations for researchers, especially for young researchers and emerging researchers embarking on their career and where this will come to light. Now, how can we discover or how can we identify what is a predatory journal? So there are many aids out there. There's Think, Check, Submit. I love that tool because it actually gives you a checklist that you as an author can complete for yourself to establish whether it's a predatory journal or not. And especially in doubt, please follow that guide. You can see we've listed quite a couple which is free and open for you to use and to consider when you think that you are actually now encountering a predatory journal. You might ask me, maybe later on, what about Cabell's journal list? As you all know, that it has been taken off and through pressure of his institution. But I think, not Cabell, I'm so sorry, Beale's list of predatory journals, my sincere apologies. And I think Bill actually started to highlight what is a predatory journal, especially the publishers. A lot has happened after that to start removing journals which are showing signs of being predatory and unethical. Unfortunately, that list is not continuing. Although personally, I thought that the criteria he sometimes used were not based on very good evidence as such, but I think it did create the awareness and the problem we are actually facing. Now, how do we recognize a predatory journal or a conference for that matter? So these predatory journals solicit articles from researchers through practices that exploit the pressure on the researchers to publish and present their work. I've just received another email this morning whereby I've been prompted in biochemistry to please urgently submit my manuscript to this address. And I'm just thinking, but I'm not a biochemist. far from that. I am in a different world. You know, why would you send me something like that? So you can already, it really asked me a lot of, I had to ask a lot of questions to think, why are you sending me this? Where did you get my name? I'm not part of your group. Why did you do that? So that's typical one thing. Other features which include then a rapid pay to publish, present models without rigorous or indeed peer review. When I drilled down in this website, I also saw that they asked me to please pay immediately because then they can review, etc., etc. And I just thought, no, that's not common practice. Where do you get that from, that I have to first pay before anybody has even seen my manuscript? And that is just not on. It really is questionable. It was really very questionable for me. Or fake or editorial conference boards, falsely listing respected scientists, that you get many a time. Fraudulent impact factors or metrics. So you also get that they imitate different logos, etc., of companies. We saw that often, Springer, or they would say they're part of this impact factor group. And that really raises a lot of questions. It should raise a lot of questions. And then journal and conference titles that are deceptively similar to legitimate ones. So this is scooping. We found quite a bit of journals who have been scooped by predatory publishers, and it was very difficult for those journals then to eliminate the predatory journals or get the old image and logo and content back because they were scooped and they were and it's these very big companies in countries that take over websites, etc., and it's not possible to actually get your website back. Excuse me. Aggressive spam invitations to solicit articles and abstracts, including outside of a researcher's own expertise. So these genuinely fraudulent practices continue to evolve and are becoming more and more difficult to distinguish between low quality, unethical, and questionable publishing and conferencing practices. So when does a journal become deceptive? So when it's lying about its purpose, misleading authors or readers about the journal status, the costs involved, or the services provided. And we can define this further by non-existent or improper peer review and misrepresenting the process by which its articles are selected, a mimicry of other journals or websites, no or fake journal editorial board, alternative or fake impact factor, lies about being indexed or members of publishing organizations. They hide the cost of their publishing and potentially have illegal operations. Now, I would like to show you this particular graph, and the slides will be shared and you're welcome to use them. And as I said right in the beginning of my presentation, is that it was sometimes very difficult to distinguish between really fraudulent, deceptive, low quality journals and quality journals sometimes, unacceptable low quality up to promising to questionable and to quality. And we developed this particular guide because it's used interchangeably, and it's sometimes very difficult to distinguish between the different practices that publishers are involved in. We thought we'll do a scale on which you can gauge with what type of journal are you doing with. So is it a high-risk fraudulent journal? And I've just given you sort of the typical markers of what we consider on that end of the spectrum. And then if we look at low quality, what do we view as typical markers there? Low quality peer review, breaches of good editorial practice, services to authors and academia are lacking or poor, use of aggressive and indiscriminate solicitation practices, unclear about the publishing charges, lack of satisfactory archiving, inactive editorial board, up to a low risk or a high quality journal where it signifies the following markers: thorough peer review, strong editorial boards, robust system to ensure research integrity and retractions, clear about publishing costs, occasionally engages, please note, occasionally engages in predatory practices, but takes proper action when criticized. So we've got to be very clear about that. If I think about a huge publishing house like Springer, who also had major problems with predatory journals in their suite of journals, and they removed them. And once there's complaints, they do have a look and see what's going on, just as an example. So I hope you can see how difficult it was for us to actually define predatory in a very concise manner. And that's why we went for a spectrum approach of predatory and unethical practices as such. But what this also signifies, if Nigeria is like my country, we publish 320 journals in South Africa. And I can tell you, if not half and more, falls into this unacceptable low quality category. So we have a major job within my country is to ensure that they actually move towards the green part of this definition. So once again, if there's any editors out there listening this morning to this webinar, you have the danger to start falling into quite a low acceptance of your journal because of how you conduct your publishing practices and your editorial workflow and practices as such. So I hope this is helpful for you just to look a little bit more internally and see how you actually conduct those practices. This also fits into research integrity and research ethics because it's the vehicle that take all the research output out there and to showcase what has been done. Sorry, and I have spoken about this. Now, what are the drivers or the root causes of these practices? So we found that the monetization and the commercialization of the research sector, including an academic publishing system whose proprietary and commercial interests may lead to conflict with research integrity with the author pays model. So open access publishing really puts itself out there being dangerous. So when you do open access publishing, we are advocates for open access publishing. You have to ensure that you ensure your researchers that you are going in an ethical manner. You are conducting your business, and especially if you levy author pays fees. One have to be upright and have to be upfront about how you actually apply the funds that you're asking for. So the quantity over quality research evaluation systems, there's been mentioning even by the previous speaker that we have to look at our evaluation systems of researchers, especially with institutional drivers and incentives that shape the behavior of individual academics. So there's this quite a drive towards how could we change the research evaluation systems to represent what it should be representing. And the lack of transparency, whether fully open, anonymized or hybrid in peer review processes. Again, and my previous speaker also highlighted it, it's exasperated by poor training, capacity and recognition of peer reviewers. So it does seem that the system again needs a high input in terms of training, etc. Now, what is it that you can do? And I just want to check with my chair. Do I still have 2 minutes just to go through my last 2 slides? I do not unnecessarily want to impede on the time. Can I just get a heads up, please?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'll be quick just to finalize it. So what is it that universities, academies can do to combat these practices? So we use the word and we coined the phrase that we have to act in the concert because that's what we are. We are all role players fighting for the same objective. Regarding the messaging around predatory practices that diminish and damage the academic life. And how can we do that? We must raise awareness. So thank you very much for this opportunity this morning to showcase the danger of predatory journals and conferences amongst your community. This training and this mentoring services that we provide this morning is absolutely critical and core to highlight research ethics and integrity. And to champion and to set standards for research integrity and best practice, recognizing peer review as a highly valued responsibility. We must take our role as peer reviewers very seriously. It is part not only of a mentoring process as well of the researcher at hand, but also to raise the bar for the quality in our research output. So we must also recover some ownership of the publishing process and strengthen its function as a vital scientific service to the scholarly community. This report and all the findings that I've shared with you today is available on the IAP website. The summary report of our findings is published in French. If that is perhaps useful to you, please go to the IAP website and you can extract the report there, the summary report as well as the full report. Please make use of that. And again, I would just like to thank you for this opportunity for allowing me to share what we have found. Thank you very much.
Once again, let us put our hands together for that wonderful presentation. We are very grateful, Mrs. Susan Valdemar. Thank you, ma'am. We want to, at this time, take questions. If you have your question, I have one written already. Please, if you have questions, you can write it down and we will read it. The first question, ma, is, it's a long one, so I'll read it out. I once submitted a bibliometric article to a journal for publication, which went through 4 different reviewers, with 3 finding it publishable, with various recommended corrections. However, the article was eventually rejected with this narration, and I quote, "We are sorry that the editors can no longer publish your manuscript in this journal and wish you would continue to submit your manuscript to our journal in the future." The question here now is this ethical? After going through 4 different reviewers with 3 finding it publishable, it's now rejected. Is it ethical? Can you take that now while we await other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a very interesting one, and my very quick answer would be no. There are a couple of things which to me is not ethical. First of all, the author should not know how many reviewers there were, because we're following a blinded peer review process. I suppose what the editor did was to share the different reviews with the author, which is also done. That's very true. But what I do find strange, if 3 reviewers have agreed that it should be published with the corrections, then I cannot see, based on the 4th one, how it couldn't have, how it could not have been accepted for publishing. So yes, I don't think that's ethical. In the way that practice have been conducted. Yeah.
Thank you, ma. Okay, so there's another question here. It says, in your presentation, you mentioned that other disciplines are more prone. And the question is, why are other disciplines more prone to predatory journals?
Yes, those were just the highlights to show you sort of the two outers of those two subject fields in our report. You will see it's being mentioned that that was just sort of a highlight of our conclusions. I also think it depends where your researchers mostly publish in. If I think about this particular group that we're addressing this morning, your research output, I find, is mostly also in journals and less so in conferences. I think the outer that we mentioned, namely that in engineering, that in conferences they are more prone for predatory practices. I think that was the only subject fields that were really on that side of the spectrum. But all the other subject fields were more of in journal predatory practices as such.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. The third question here is predatory publishing practices are a serious crime. Are there laws that serve as deterrents to such practices? If yes, why are these practices still existing or thriving?
Thank you all for your wonderful questions. They're very prominent and critical to what we're discussing this morning. You're absolutely right. And that's why we said that this issue has to be dealt with on different layers. If we talk about universities, etc., there should be very strong policies within the university as to what will they do when a researcher engages in these practices. So that's on institutional level. On governmental level, policy level, what we are about to roll out through the Department of Higher Education and Training, and because of what our researchers have started to engage on, is a publications quality framework. And I can assure you that on the policy level, there will be very strong punitive measures to, towards researchers and organizations that embark on these practices. Because this has been highlighted through our South African study, now if there's any complaints, they can put their complaints to the Department of Higher Education Training, and we as ASIF normally evaluate, is it true that this is a predatory journal or not? And the thing is that they don't get their subsidy. If there's any findings that the researcher has engaged and the organization is engaged, then punitively, there are very strong measurements against them. And of course, then if we go a little bit lower into departmental level, I think there should also be quite a strong message and education and training for researchers not to engage in these things at all. And you're right. And through our study, and I did share that with you, is what happens over a long term if we keep on engaging in this. It's really detrimental, negative detrimental effects on the system as a whole that makes everything quite questionable. So yes, it's on a different level and different layers that we have to address this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please let's put our hands together for Mrs. Waldemar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. She said we should put our hands together for Mrs. Susan Welts Man. I didn't hear anybody clapping. Thank you very much. And I also want to appreciate you all for your patience thus far. We have come to the third aspect of this program today, where we'll be taking the third presentation. And I'm glad and happy that this presentation will be taken by Professor Grace Olushola Botoshaw. The Shola is a namesake of mine. All right, so to bring her up, permit me to call on Mrs. Ojeka John Rachel for the citation of Professor Grace Olushola Botoshaw. A round of applause for her, please. Sorry, please, pardon me, please. I want to make a correction on that. Please permit me to invite Mrs. Anne Alayemola for the citation of Professor Shola Botosho.
Thank you very much. The Vice Chancellor Ma permits me to read the citation of Professor Grace Olushola Botosho. Thank you. Professor Grace Olushola Botosho studied pharmacy at the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, and received the University of Ife Scholarship Award of Academic Excellence for 3 consecutive years. Please let's put our hands together very well. Thank you. She obtained her MSc and PhD degrees in pharmacology and therapeutics at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. She undertook part of her pre-doctoral training at the London School of Pharmacy, London, England. She is a professor of pharmacology and therapeutics in the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. Her career over the past 30 years has focused on different aspects of malaria research, including applications in discovery of novel interventions for malaria, diagnostic and therapeutics, molecular pharmacology, and elucidation of drug resistance in malaria. Professor Botosho has demonstrated a robust capacity for cutting-edge research in malariology. Her honors and international recognitions awards are impressive. She was elected fellow of the prestigious Nigerian Academy of Science and African Academy of Sciences in 2020. She was also elected fellow of the West African Society of Pharmacology in 2021. Professor Botosho heads the malaria research laboratories at the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, designated as a Center of Excellence for Malaria Translational Research by the African Network for Drugs and Diagnostic Innovation, ANDI. The success of the research group is visible in the recorded extramural funding level, the establishment of a state-of-the-art multidisciplinary malaria research laboratory that serves as a resource for research capacity and capability building in infectious diseases in sub-Saharan Africa. Her research facility has also devoted efforts to establishing an intersectoral network between the College of Medicine, policymakers in the Ministry of Health, as well as national and international implementers in order to translate research findings into evidence-based policy options for public health. Professor Botosho has served as an advisor to WHO, CDR at various consultation meetings in Asia, Africa, and Europe. Let's clap more, thank you. Professor Botosho has had the privilege to work and collaborate with partners across Africa, Southeast Asia, United Kingdom, and United States of America with international funding support. She has led as principal investigator, co-principal investigator, an impressive array of grants, WHO TDR, Wellcome Trust, ISID, WHO/MIM TDR, supporting cutting-edge original work and training young investigators in sub-Saharan Africa. Her international partnerships and the very productive research collaborations have been valuable in providing training opportunities for research capacity building and technology sharing that is enriching competencies of postgraduate students, postdoctoral fellows, and young colleagues from Ibadan and the West African region. She has supervised and co-supervised over 40 MSc and 15 PhD students to date. She serves actively on various committees within and outside of the University of Ibadan. She served as pioneer head between 2017 and 2021 of the new Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology in the Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Ibadan, which has successfully been established. The peer-reviewed publications of Professor Gotosho have been comprehensive, running into 107 publications. Thank you. Please, with a round ovation, one more, let's invite Professor Gotosho to please present. Thank you, ma'am. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice Chancellor, the Director of LUCRID, and other distinguished members of the Landmark University. Thank you so much for inviting me and making me a part of this 22nd Research Day webinar. It's my delight to be here, and I'm really excited about it. The topic that has been given me, so excuse me, I'm having some challenges here. So I'm changing my slide. Okay, so I've been asked to talk on the tips to overcome research ethical pitfalls under the publish or perish pressure. And it's my delight to be invited to talk about this topic. So I'll be guided by this outline. We'll be looking at an overview of the publish or perish maxim. We'll be looking at the detrimental effects of the publish or perish pressure. And we'll be looking at overcoming research ethic pitfalls. And I'd like to start from the very beginning. As an academic, you have been engaged to teach, to do research, and to provide service. And these three activities are supposed to run concurrently, and they are very demanding. But that is what you and I have signed up for. So what's the primary purpose of research? It's mainly for discoveries and also for innovation. And when we do research, what we're doing is that we're bringing together observations, new knowledge, and data to solve problems, invent solutions, and also develop new products, all in a bid to propel humanity forward. So where there is no active research, there can't be any writing, there can't be publications. So what's the importance of our publications? To publish means to make something public. And whatever we discover and we do not document and disseminate will fall under that cliche of did not happen. So until it is documented and disseminated for others to see, then that discovery just did not happen. So what's the importance of publications? When we publish our research findings, it allows other researchers and also the public to appreciate the value of our findings. Publications are also very important for science to progress. So other researchers see what we have done, they see the evidence we've generated, and they can also build on it. Thirdly, our publications are also important to bring about changes based on the evidence we have generated, and these changes can impact on humanity. For instance, in our research laboratory, the Malaria Research Laboratory, we serve as a sentinel site for the Federal Ministry of Health. And in 2005, when the policy, the malaria treatment policy was changed from chloroquine and sulfadoxine pyrimethamine to the artemisinin that we're using today, artemether, lumefantrine, artesunate, and modafinil. Part of the data from our laboratory that we had published influenced that change. It wasn't only data from our laboratory, it was data from 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria from various sentinel sites. So our publications are actually very important in bringing about changes that impact on humanity. What professional pressures do we fall under as a result of our publications or the need to publish? And there are quite a number. The publish or perish maxim or syndrome. We are under the pressure to publish. We are under the pressure to retain our jobs or tenureship as it happens in other clients. There's that pressure to keep up with our peers. There's also that huge pressure to secure grants, because without grants, we really cannot have active research work going on. And also we're all under that pressure of being the first to a discovery. And we saw that play out during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the publish or perish syndrome, this syndrome has been haunting academics for years. In fact, this publish or perish statement that we keep talking about has been in existence for over 60 years. So it's not a new syndrome, and it has haunted academics and kept academics awake for decades. And the 3 little words, publish or perish, it describes the constant pressure that is placed on academics to publish their research findings in scholarly journals rapidly and continually in order for them to stay relevant and also be successful. This constant pressure in some other clients is called point mania or pointosis. So it's being described as if, it's some form of infection or disease condition. And why is it called point mania or pointosis? Because when it comes to promotions in the university system, points are awarded for the publications we submit. So in the academic environment, so publish translates to academic ranking, academic promotion and seniorship, bonuses or rewards. Some institutions actually give some academics rewards for publishing in, scholarly journals. For instance, in my own institution, I got a letter of commendation from the Vice Chancellor for sourcing for a grant, which was used in training students. To publish also translates to national and international reputation for the lecturer. The institution also benefits extensively from these publications because it also translates to institutional ranking. And we know that a lot of institutions, everybody wants to be ranked high. It also translates to institutional prestige. To publish also translates to funding or grant acquisition. Most of the time when we are seeking for funding, the funders want to see your publication profile. How much experience do you have in the area which you are proposing to do this research? And a good publication history would influence obtaining these grants, of course, in addition to a very strong proposal. Now, in our academic environment, no publication translates to no academic ranking. It could result in a demotion or stagnancy, where an academic is on one position for years on end because he or she does not have publications that would enable him move to the next level. Of course, there can't be more bonuses. Of course, there can't be any reputation if there are no publications, and that individual is therefore said to perish. So what are the detrimental consequences of the publish or perish dilemma? There's a lot of fear and anxiety as a result of the limited time to do research. And if you go back to the very first slide that I showed about the reasons for our engagement as academics, it's to teach, to do research, and to provide service. And all three run simultaneously. All three are very demanding. You sit at committee meetings for hours on end. You are chairing a committee. You have to go and provide service here and there. The lecture schedules, are packed. You teach, you examine, you do mid-semester tests, and then your research also has to go on. So there is limit. So there is fear and anxiety because of the limited time. The fear and anxiety can also come from skill deficiencies or inexperience. And another area of fear is the fear of having manuscripts rejected. And we heard one of the questions that was put forward was that of a manuscript rejection, which I'm sure that individual would have been very unhappy about. So a lot of times, these fear and anxieties are quite common among many young lecturers. Now, under the publish or perish dilemma, what has also happened? Scientists have now downgraded, some scientists have downgraded that primary aim of discovery and innovation, which is supposed to make an impact, provide solutions, make inventions, that will move humanity forward, or that will address the problems, of mankind. Now, a lot of scientists are now just trying to publish as many papers as possible. So it has become a game of numbers. And as a result, there is a decline in the quality of research that is being done. There is also a growth in the journal industry, as we have seen described and demonstrated by the last speaker. There's also an increase in research misconduct. And in this little comic that I put here, these are two academicians, and looking at the notice board there with so many seminars, that they have to attend. And the young man there is saying to his colleague, I have to fake my data with all these ethics seminars. I don't have time to do experiments. So with the declining quality of research, how does that play out? You have researchers unduly hurrying research steps instead of following standard operating procedures, instead of doing research that has integrity, research that can be reproducible. Another thing that is being done that affects the quality of the research is shortening that appropriate and thoughtful interval between research work and reporting. After a research has been done, you've generated your data, it's been analyzed, and interpreted. You want to look at it before you start reporting. Study that data very well, and see what is it saying? What can I see here, and how best can it be reported? Well, that time interval is also being shortened, and this affects the quality of the research. And we saw this thing play out so much during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was associated with a storm of information. There was a high number of paper submissions and also a high level of retraction. And the caption I have there is retracted COVID-19 articles, a side effect of the hot race to publication. So this is what happens when we're under the publish or perish pressure and we're just trying to churn out publications. These are some of the issues that can arise, and the quality of our research declines. Of course, because of the publish or perish pressure, there's been a growth in the journal industry. And I'm so glad with the last presentation that it was very well highlighted. So most of these journals that we have now, the predatory journals, they are business minded and they're fast overshadowing the knowledge-based journals, you know, and some academics are also falling prey to these predatory journals. I won't spend time on this because it has been well taken. As a result of the publish or perish pressure, there's also been, you know, an increase in research misconduct. And research misconduct, there's so many aspects. You have plagiarism, you have salami slicing, there could also be self-plagiarism, unethical authorship. I'll try and go through a few of them. And here, one of the research misconducts that comes up as a result of the publish or perish pressure is plagiarism, where you use another person's ideas, words, or processes or results without giving the necessary credit. So that's document or whatever is taken appears like it is your own. There could also be self-plagiarism, where you plagiarize what you have already documented and published. So it's a repeated use or a recycling of one's own previously published work. It could be the text, it could be the data, it could be figures, and then making it to appear brand new. And the impact of this behavior is that it leads to redundant publications. Another type of research misconduct as a result of the publish or perish pressure is data fabrication and data falsification. In data fabrication, that study was never even done. No research was conducted. No experiment was done. No data was generated. The individual manufactures data, creates fake data sets and results and presents them as true and writes a conclusion, a discussion on data that was fabricated. There could also be data falsification where the research was actually conducted, but when the data was looked at, there were a number of things that did not fit into what their hypothesis was or the expected results. And then the data is now modified so as to get publishable results, and that data is published. I've put here the case of an anesthesiologist who fabricated data in 21 studies, and he published 21 papers. His name is Scott Rubin, a medical doctor of the Bay State Medical Center in Springfield, Massachusetts. He published 21 papers from fabricated data. And unfortunately, it altered the way millions of patients were treated for pain during and after orthopedic surgery. So he presented data on non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and their use in pre and post-surgical procedures in the orthopedic department. So, and of course, what happens? Apart from this, even there was a boom also for the pharmaceutical industries because there was a high demand for these medications, yet the data was fabricated, yet some patients were given these drugs unnecessarily. So the negative effect of data fabrication and data falsification is very huge, and most of the time it cannot be retracted. So care has to be taken. Salami slicing is also another research misconduct that the publish or the perish pressure puts the academician under. And slicing means, the salami slicing means slicing up research results in order to generate multiple papers. So you have conducted the study quite all right. For instance, you've conducted a study on the antibiotic anti-malaria combination, on an antibiotic anti-malaria combination that can be useful in the management of drug-resistant malaria. So I've combined rifampicin with amlodipine, and I did studies to see its efficacy in infection in an animal model, malaria infection in an animal model. I did histopathological studies to see whether that combination can damage vital organs in the body. I did antioxidant studies. Does the combination, does it have any antioxidant effects? Does the combination also have effects on hematological and biochemical indices in the body? Now I get all these data. It would have been so beautiful if I published this as one robust article that addresses all this. So and publish it in a high impact journal. But in a bid to get as many papers, because some see it as a game of numbers, that study will now be broken down. The research results will be broken down. So you publish the antioxidant effects of amodiaquine rifampicin. You publish separately the effects of amodiaquine rifampicin on biochemical and hematological parameters. Then you publish separately the toxicity following the use of amodiaquine rifampicin in an animal model. And a fourth paper would be the efficacy of amodiaquine rifampicin in management of drug-resistant malaria. So you have 4 papers instead of one robust, large, highly impactful, robust paper. Now, when we slice our papers like that, it affects the visibility of the research. And most of the time, because it's not robust, such studies are now published in low impact or low quality journals. And of course, such studies will probably find their way into pediatric journals. Secondly, the significance of that work would be lost, as most people will not cite it. And of course, because that study has been sliced up into small sets, such an act would promote data fabrication and unnecessary extrapolation of the results, because you are not using the entire data that you have generated. Another area of research misconduct, which is seen under the publish or perish pressure, is unethical authorship. Now, there are 4 types of authorship. You have the lead authorship. You have correspondence or authorship. You have honorary or undeserved authorship, and you have ghost authorship. But when it comes to unethical authorship, we're looking at the last 2, honorary or the undeserved authorship. We can also be grouped again into 3 subgroups. There's gift authorship, where somebody who has not participated in the research, who has not contributed significantly to the research. He didn't contribute to the research design, conceptualization of idea, data generation, data analysis, data interpretation, manuscript writing. That person's name is put on the publication. Maybe so that when he also publishes his own study, he would put your own name there as well. So that's gift authorship. There could also be guest authorship, where the name of maybe a senior researcher who has made a name for himself, well known and well published, is put on the list of authors so as to kind of give that paper a push and maybe get it accepted in a journal. There's also coercive authorship, where a senior researcher forces a junior researcher to put the name of someone who didn't participate in the study, or maybe they want to put the name of a guest author. So this is coercive authorship. It is against the will. It's not the desire of that junior researcher. Also, we have the ghost authorship. And here you have, this is somebody who has contributed immensely to the writing of a document, a manuscript, a book, but is not featured as an author. And you see this play out in situations where you have postgraduate students who give their thesis to somebody to write for them. So that writer is the ghost author. And you also have pharmaceutical companies who also engage in this in some cases. So any listed author must be a representative of the published paper. and must have in-depth knowledge about the study, and they must have contributed significantly to that study or to the writing of the manuscript. So when research integrity is violated, it damages the trust between the general public and scientific experts. I said it earlier on, when we do research, it's to impact on humanity. When you publish, you are making it public, and the public are looking up onto us. We keep talking about the Gown to Town series, you know. So what are we taking to the town if our research is questionable? So it damages the trust between the general public and scientific experts. It also affects the trustful relationship between researchers. So when I see an article, and there's a lot of, you know, violation of research ethics, and the research is not even reproducible. When you see such authors' publications, you think a second time, do I really want to read publication from such researchers? So how do we avoid these pitfalls? How do we avoid the pitfalls that the publish or perish pressure sometimes generates as researchers, as academicians? I said earlier on, we've been employed to teach, to do research, and to provide service, and it is a huge amount of responsibility. All three are huge amounts of responsibilities. And so we need to set our time management expectations early. So as a young lecturer, the earlier one sets these time management expectations, the better. If we are mid-career and we still have challenges, it's not too late to start setting our time management expectations. And so we need to develop a personal development plan. Everybody must have that. How many manuscripts per year do you want to publish? How many proposals do you plan to write and submit in a year? Because we've said it, if there is no active research, there can't be writing. How many conferences do you want to attend? And it's very important, because when you get to conferences, you meet people of like mind. You see people who will critique your work, and you can network at conferences. How many seminars do you want to attend? How many continuous education programs do you also want to attend? You must have a master timetable, a weekly planner, and a to-day list. Plan what you want to do each day. And at the end of the day, you need to take stock. What have I done? And tick off and begin to plan for the next day. And it's very important that we do not procrastinate. And the reason why we shouldn't procrastinate is because there's a high volume of reading, of writing, and research. And so the time management habits we develop will either make us or will break us. So it's very important that we develop good time management habits to accommodate all the responsibilities before us. We also need to build a culture of good research practice while young. So it goes with you, it moves with you. So we need to use reproducible and transparent procedures for our research. We need to keep accurate notes when conducting our research. And there must be a personal conviction that the research that is being conducted is to improve life. So when we have that at the back of our minds, it guides the kind of our study designs. And I tell you, when we do research in this manner, we're even able to get funding where we have research that will impact on life, that will impact on society, that will impact on, changes in health, changes in policy. We need to be very conscious of ethical issues. And so at all costs, we must avoid research misconduct. I forgot to also add under the research misconduct about, duplication of publication, where you have already published a paper and then it is now duplicated, maybe under another heading and submitted to another journal. That is also research misconduct. So we need to be honest about our research. We need to publish what we find. And there's nothing wrong if you have a negative result. That is what you found, and it can be published. We owe the truth to the public. We owe the truth to research participants, those who we have recruited into our studies, the volunteers, the people we have shared our questionnaires with. We owe them the truth. We owe our colleagues the truth. We owe collaborators the truth. The funding institutions, we also owe them the truth. And we owe our own institutions, our employers, the truth as well. So it's very important that we are honest about our research. I've put here again, how to avoid the pitfalls. Collaborate, collaborate, and collaborate. Lone Rangers, they say, don't go far. A tree cannot make a forest, and we cannot be an island. So it's very important that we collaborate with others. And today, multidisciplinary collaborative research is key. It's very important. And when you collaborate, it means you are bringing expertise and resources together. And when that is done, you are able to answer bigger and more complex scientific questions. You are able to expand the breadth of your research, so you can look at so many things. Of course, when we collaborate and we're able to do this kind of research, we're going to have and publish our research findings. There will be maximum impact. People will cite our work. It will be relevant to the academic community and, of course, make impact to the general public. When we collaborate, we're able to also attract funding, because when we are able to generate output, like I said earlier on, that will impact on policy, practice, industry, and the general public. So you are able to attract more funding through initiatives like this. Of course, when you also collaborate, it expands your network. You are able to meet other people in your field, experts in your field, and also in complementary fields. You are able to learn new skills when you collaborate. So there's a lot of advantage in collaboration. Another way to also overcome the pitfalls is to use the Realist Protocol. I actually found this in a publication, and I found it, so helpful and very profound. It's in a publication by Ambrosino and Passini, 2020. It's in the list of references at the end of my presentation. So the Realist Protocol, the R there stands for, you can see there's a capital letter R, a capital letter L, and a capital letter S. So the R there stands for reading. Writing comes from reading. We've talked about this, we've said it earlier, no research, no writing. Writing comes from reading, and reading teaches us how to write. So they go hand in hand. The more you read, the better you can write. So it's very important that as academicians, as researchers, we access research literature daily. This is the cornerstone for any researcher. And when you access research literature daily, you are able to see what has been published, what is new, what are the gaps that are there that I can fill. It can also answer some of the questions that you are also having. So it's very important. And so if there is no reading, there can be no research. And if there is no research, there can be no writing. If there is no writing, there can't be publications. And that maxim, publish or perish, begins to haunt the academician. So it's important. The R there stands for reading. The L stands for learn or learning. And Albert Einstein said, once you stop learning, you start dying. So we all need to learn over and over, learn and relearn as academicians to overcome the publish or the perish dilemma. And for us to learn, one of the things I see is that you need to choose a mentor or even have mentors. You don't have to have one mentor. Choose a mentor to learn from. Choose somebody who has excelled in their career, excelled in academics, excelled in grant sourcing, excelled in, doing high quality research. Learn from them. So choose a mentor or choose mentors to learn from. And for me, mentorship is the key. I believe so strongly in mentorship, and I would promote it and project it any day. I'm a beneficiary of good mentorship, and I'm also mentoring my own. I also have my mentees as well. So it's very important, and this would help us. You show your publications to them. You show your research designs to them. You bounce off ideas of them. And I still have mentors, even despite being a professor. The S in the Realist Protocol stands for start. Just start. Just start. Start from simple studies and gradually build up into more robust ones. Once you start, I'm sure the sky will be your limit. One other thing I also want to say here is to encourage us that we should not be afraid or discouraged of manuscript rejection. That's one way to avoid the pitfalls, overcome the pitfalls. Don't be afraid of manuscript rejection. I'm sure all of us have experienced it one time or the other. And there are so many reasons why a manuscript is rejected. It could even be a misfit between the journal and your paper. I once submitted an article to a journal, and when it was going to be sent back to me, the reviewer's comments was so extensive. In fact, the reviewer designed another study. So if I wanted to do another study, he had designed something so beautiful. But that wasn't my aim. What I was describing was a methodology for therapeutic drug monitoring, determination of mefloquine in saliva as a potential source or tool for therapeutic drug monitoring in resource-poor countries. And so what did I do? I went back, looked through other journals, and found the Malaria Journal. And Malaria Journal has a methodology section. What did I do? I submitted to Malaria Journal methodology section. It came back with minor corrections, and that paper was accepted. So that it could have been a misfit. So when you have that, you can talk to your colleagues, read the aims and the scope of journals. Your manuscript could have been rejected because of the poor style of writing, the grammar or punctuations. So it's important that all authors on the paper see the manuscript and they all make contributions. Two heads, they say, are always better than one. Sometimes the manuscript may have not contributed anything to the subject matter. So one has to go back to the drawing board sometimes. The title may not match the objectives. The analysis could be flawed. Ethical considerations could also be inadequate. So there are so many reasons. And it's also important to know that a manuscript is never written at one sitting. So you can't sit down now and say, I'm going to write a manuscript. You can't sit down in one single period and say, I'm writing a manuscript. You can't write a manuscript with one single line of thought or just once. Sometimes you may have to have as many as 10, 15 drafts. And when you keep, revising that manuscript, it makes it better. And the chances of it being accepted is also higher. I also want to advise, in order for us to avoid these pitfalls, don't be arrogant when it comes to the comments from the reviewers. It's important that we consider the reviewers' comments. And a lot of times, if we look at those comments, they actually provide information on how to improve the quality of the manuscripts. So the reviewers' comments actually help us to grow. And I've benefited extensively from reviewers' comments. There was another paper I submitted. It was on diagnosis of malaria using saliva. And the first time I submitted to the American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, it was rejected. And they sent me the reviewer's comment. He said it wasn't even possible. to detect malaria in saliva. He also said the sample size was small, which I quite agreed, and a number of other things. But what did I do? I went back to the bench, increased the sample size. I was sure that it was detectable. So it wasn't, it wasn't just a one-time thing. I knew we could detect parasite protein in saliva, and I was convinced. So I went back to the drawing board. I went back to the laboratory, expanded the study, even added molecular studies to confirm our findings. And that paper was resubmitted to the same journal, American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, and it was accepted. And it's one of my best papers to date. So I learned from the reviewers' comments, and I used it to grow. I also added here that it's very important that we are also respectful in our response to reviewers' comments. So they have taken their time to evaluate our work. So when we are responding, even where we disagree with some of their comments, always learn to write in a respectful and courteous manner. For all you know, you may end up meeting that reviewer and eventually being a collaborator of some sort. So what are the core values for success as a researcher? You must have to have an inquisitive mind, a mind that asks questions. Why? How? What if? You need to be able to challenge existing norms. Think out of the box. We need a team spirit. We've talked about collaboration. If you don't have a team spirit, then it will be difficult to work in a group. There's a need for integrity. We've said that over and over. Fairness in whatever you do. We heard that even in the first lecture when it comes to ethics in research. You must have emotional intelligence to be able to control your emotion, understand it, and also that of other people, understand their emotion, because you are going to be working with a group. You must have excellent communication skills, both in writing and in speaking. You must also have, this is the one I'm going to say now is very key. You must have the ability to give and receive criticism without taking it personal. So when your work is criticized, when your methodology is criticized, when peers criticize what you have done, don't take it personal. Try and see the value in what is being said. You must also improve yourself continually, learn and relearn, and you must be persistent, because sometimes it just doesn't work the way you want it to work, but you have to keep being persistent so you can get to where you want to. And I'd like to encourage us to embrace our academic community. Let's network, don't isolate yourself. Attend seminars, even the ones beyond your field. Attend seminars. There's always something to learn. I've said it earlier, attend and present at conferences, and stay positive and believe that you will excel. Finally, I'd like to encourage us on the work-life balance. Seek balance and support in your life. Make sure you take very good care of yourself. Don't neglect your family and others while you are trying to make a success in your career. Family and friends are important. And lastly, make sure you take a vacation because you need it. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow. A round of applause again for that detailed presentation by Professor Shola. We have some questions there, and if we still have questions, please, I would like you to indicate by raising your hand while I read these questions that we have harvested already. The first question here, Ma, says, does assisting a colleague on manuscript editing, proofreading, and pre-publication review qualify one to automatically be one of the authors? You may wish to respond to that question, Ma.
Okay, thank you for that question. And the work has been done. The manuscript has been written, and it's brought to you. Could you kindly help me to proofread this and see whether there are some minor errors there? Personally, I don't think that qualifies that candidate as an author. I don't think so. because he's not adding to the science.
Okay, ma.
He's only, so if I send it to you, maybe I've not formatted it well, and you help me to format. I think that kind of person can be acknowledged. Thank you for proofreading, but I don't think that person will qualify as an author.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Another question here says, is data clearing, for instance, removal of, come again? Okay, data cleaning. Okay, for instance, removal of outliers in a data set, a research misconduct. While talking about research conduct, you mentioned the phrase salami slicing. Please, what do you mean by salami? Thank you, ma.
Okay. Okay, so data cleaning. Okay, yes, you want to remove outliers. Yes, there is room for that. But by the time, you actually completely expunge quite a number of the data, then there is a problem. Then you are moving on to data falsification, where it's now changing the face or changing the outlook of what the results of the results that was obtained. So one has to be careful when you're talking about data cleaning. One has to really be very careful so that we are not actually falsifying the data. So where you have outliers, and it's quite obvious that there is an outlier, and you get rid of that outlier, then that should be in order. But one needs to be very careful that you don't start falsifying the data. Okay?
Okay, ma.
Then the second question on salami slicing must have been the person who came up with that idea, but salami slicing, I don't know whether it's the salami that is the problem or the slicing. Now, there's also this food product called salami, which is sliced into very thin pieces, very, very thin pieces. So it's also possible, but salami slicing simply means you are cutting up your results into smaller fractions so that you can have many publications from one study or from data that has been generated. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma. I wouldn't know if we have more questions in the house, or do we have questions online? LUCRID, do we have questions online? Any more questions? All right. If there are no more questions, we would like to sincerely thank the third presenter for this 22nd LUCRID webinar, Professor Grace Olushola Botosho. Please, a round of applause again for her. Thank you so, so much. Next on the program, we shall be having an appraisal of the presentations that we have had today. The first presentation was made by Professor Walter Jiaoku, and he spoke on the past, the present, and the future response to research ethics protocol in Africa. His presentation included the past research ethics in Africa as documented, with documented cases of historical injustices, and he gave quite a catalog of that in his presentation. And the present research ethics in Africa, in most countries, able to adequately protect research participants was another aspect of his presentation. That's talking about the present. And then for the future, he mentioned on the future of research ethics in Africa, which will require efficient RAC and well-trained RAC members to address emerging issues in ethics, such as data protection of participants, changing landscape in informed consent, and so on. The second presentation was by Mrs. Susan Welts Man, who spoke on the topic, predatory and unethical publishing practices. She spoke on the increase in the number of predatory journals that are published, and our presentation enunciated the perverse consequence of the publish and perish imperative, the enormous pressure to publish and publish fast, which is to publish facts in high impact journals, which influences both authors and editors. She defines predatory and unethical practices in academic journals and conferences, and also the prevalence and import of such. She made us to understand the drivers and the root cause of publishing in such predatory journals. She carried out a landmark survey of researchers, while highlighting that some disciplines are more vulnerable than others in publishing in predatory journals. She gave a survey which revealed that at least 24% of respondents have published in predatory journals. And she also gave examples of personal accounts of those that publish in predatory journals and the effects and the impact it has had on them, most of which are negative. She listed common features of predatory journals and conferences, while also enunciating a spectrum of predatory publishing practices. Our presentation also discussed drivers and root cases linked with the monetization and commercialization of the research sector, quantity over quality research evaluation systems, the lack of transparency in the peer review process. And then she went on to give recommendations to university academics, wider academic leadership and researchers, which can create an awareness on the dangers of predatory journals and conferences. She referred us to the IAP website for further information and championing and setting standards for publishing in credible journals. The third presentation was by Professor Grace Olushola Botosho, and she spoke on the topic, tips to overcome research ethical pitfalls under the publish or perish pressure. She established the importance of publication to be making something public, while emphasizing that whatever we discover did not happen unless it is documented and disseminated. And this allows changes and impact on humanity. She listed certain professional pressures, which include publish or perish, tenure, retaining job, keeping up with peers, and so on. She described publish or perish describes the constant pressure placed on academics to stay relevant. And it's also called points mania. I actually had that for the first time. Points mania or pointosis. And she explained what those terminologies meant. She mentioned what publishing translates to, that it translates to academic ranking, academic promotion and tenureship, bonuses, international and national recognition, to mention a few. We're also talking on non-publication, but it leads to such as non-academic ranking. As a matter of fact, every opposite thing mentioned on publishing was mentioned for no publication. She stated that the detrimental consequences of such, that is the publish or perish dilemma, and this is more common among young academics. And then she also mentioned sciences downgrading primary aim of discoveries and innovation to publish as many papers as possible. Declining quality of research leads to undue hurrying of research steps. Then publish or perish pressure has led to increase in journal industry, research misconduct, plagiarism, self-plagiarism, resulting into redundant publication, fabrication, falsification, Then research misconduct also discussed is as a means of unethical authorship, such as honorary or undeserved authorship, ghost authorship. And then she talked on violating the research integrity as a consequence to that. Then she talked on how to avoid the pitfalls of publish or perish. That's to set your time, manage your time well, time management expectations early, personal development plan, you master your timetable, then do not procrastinate. Then she emphasized on being conscious of ethical issues. We have ethical issues as related to publishing, which you have to be mindful of. Then she also talked about collaboration. Collaboration, that's by combining expertise and resources together, which has many advantages. Then she also mentioned something interesting. She talked about using the Realist Protocol. Realist is actually an acronym. R for reading, L for learning, S starting. And then she explained extensively on that. Then she advised on not being afraid or discouraged of manuscript rejection, stating that there could be many reasons for your manuscripts to be rejected. And also she advised not to be arrogant on reviewers' comments. Then she listed on the core values for a successful researcher, such as having an inquisitive mind, team spirit, integrity, fairness, emotional stability, to mention but a few. Then she also encouraged embracing the researchers, she encouraged the researcher to embrace academic quality, as well as seeking balance and conduct, rest well, eat well, live a good life. That can just be a little of the summary of what we have had here today. A round of applause for all the presenters. Once more, as permit me at this juncture to invite the director, pardon me. Okay, I'll be calling up now the director, yes, the director for Landmark University Center for Research and Innovation and Discoveries, Dr. Adeolu Adediran, for the next assignment. A round of applause for him as he comes forward, please. Please keep on clapping till he gets here.
Thank you, Deami, for the job well done. I want to sincerely appreciate every one of us for your presence, particularly our online participants. Well, my assignment here is just very simple. I want us to please rise as I bring on board our Vice Chancellor for the closing remarks.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask please let's be seated. I was actually going to ask myself if there's any reason, for me to come up again. For being part of this presentation this morning, I said, it's important I come up, especially when I saw these students coming to be part of it towards the tail end. I think this meeting, this webinar today was organized for every young faculty, every young promising student that will be coming in again, to embrace the world of academics. It's actually meant for everyone seated here. Why did I say this? Anyone in academics must write, be it journal, be it documentaries, you must write. And if you must write, you must follow the ethics of writing, so that anywhere your paper, your document, your academic manuscript goes, it will speak enough volume that will describe your personality. It will speak enough volume that will tell anyone whom you are. And so I'm glad to see some persons who are not even in academics that are part of this sitting today. Each time I come in here to be part of programs like this, I tell myself, I wish I'm younger, honestly. I wish I'm younger and embracing all of the protocols that are rolled out. I know there's a brighter future for anyone that comes to partake in meetings like this. So many things have been rolled out. And one important thing in summary, a sentence that I garnered in today's meeting is the quality of your writing, the quality of your academic presentation determines what comes to you after. And that what comes to you after can be one, yes, congratulations, your paper is accepted. It can be two, defining the kind of grant attraction you will get. The money is out there. The first presenter, Sister Susan, she said we should not call her professor. I recall when we sent the message in the first place to her, she reverted immediately to say, sorry, I'm not a professor. Call me Mrs. I said, wow, thank God for this, I wouldn't know if she's still online. She said, I'm Mrs. Susan, Valdan or whatever. So I want to appreciate all the presenters. And then the very first one, our dear man from Kenya, and that is from what? Okay, Walter, yeah, from Kenya, yes. I was still looking at where he came from, Professor Walter Jiaoku. And I want to say that, lastly, our own Professor Gbadebo, everyone listening to them, the first woman, the first presenter, everything pointing to where we are going in the name of research. Professor Mrs. Grace, Shola Botosho, yes, Mrs. Grace Shola Botosho, yes. So I want to say that all of them putting together, it's all about publishing and publishing quality. So our dear students, you have something to take away. You can personally request for the slides. We will sure give to you and not any other person. Anything that will add value to whatever you are doing in the name of your academic write-up, even if it is the way you answer questions in class, it's still applicable. Like the last speaker that talked about slicing, you can slice even your answers. When your answers are quite rich, it can fetch you the whole scores. And now you have collected your data, even you can go beyond what the expectations of your supervisor. We have seen individuals that publish their first project, which is your undergraduate project. At least I have a typical example. The boy now, that's the 2 sets ago SRC president that finished in a Greek, Agbojo Daniel. Agbojo Daniel is, where is he now? Poland. Agbojo Daniel is in Poland. When he was writing up the project, he was busy with his president, assignment as the SRC chair. But we were pushing him because I was his supervisor. We were pushing and pushing him. It got to a point I said, no, Agbojo, you can't continue this thing. Go and face your presidency. And then let them write a paper for us to graduate you. We had to push. At the end of the day, God helped him. And so when he was writing for grant or support, scholarship, he had to attach, well, he didn't know that we even published it. So online, he saw it and ran down to school. If I even just said, I said, well, you are coming now. The day of your graduation, did you look for us? And truly, he didn't look for us. I passed by him, he just greeted us casually. Now, when the thing turned to article, he was now looking for us. I didn't even know what he was using it for until he came and said, Ma, he saw so article. Ma, please, I want to add it to my document because he was writing for sponsorship. I thought it was a joke. Finally, he came, showed me he was leaving a month to the time he was leaving. I just wish I could just, put him inside of my tummy all over. That's the joy of writing. So when you are writing, have a focus and be guided also by your supervisor. I think it was myself and Professor Abolusoro that supervised this UG. So please, it's an opportunity for you to catch something from these presentations. Be focused in your writing. The second presenter, Ms. Susan, she talked about areas where they can sponsor. If your publication is in this area, you will receive attention for your submission, for your proposal. If you publish in, I think she said in Clarivate, yes, Web of Science. She said if your publication is accepted in any of Clarivate outlets, Web of Science generally, and then you have it, and other indexing platforms, they will give your proposal an attention for sponsorship. So we have wide, broad spectrum opportunities to explore in our journey, in our academic journey. And so I want to appreciate all of these three presenters this afternoon. And it goes beyond just sitting and presenting. Anyone that is serious amongst us must get something out of this and then go out there and manifest the quality that is expected of us in moving forward. And then in rounding up, let me say again, as part of what I garnered, that especially from the last presenter, all you need to look at going forward is your real list. Is your real list. Talking about reading, learning, and then getting started. It's when you read that you are able to look at what can I do. That's when ideas will come. In fact, when she was saying it, I said she should have mentioned that I in the real list should be ideas. It's after reading that ideas will be generated in you. And then you take that idea forward, you learn something from it, and then you get started in writing. So I want to believe that at the end of this meeting, shortly from now, all of us here, well, you came a little late, but some of us were here before. You are able to, the other one had lecture. These are new sets. These are new sets. Okay, before coming. But I assure you, if you request for the slides, we will give us. And all of us here also seated, the slides will be available. Professor Osawengesa, we want to appreciate you for bringing these quality facilitators our way again. And the HOD, sir, we appreciate the Dean of the college. I think this is the second or third score. Is it the second or third score for your college under SDG? The third score. Okay, we expect at least 2 more before the end of the session. Can we put our hands together for the College of Pure and Applied Sciences? Yes, thank you so much for adding a lot of value to our lives, to our academic world, number one, and also adding more documents for us in our SDG platform. We want to also request that any other dean here know, and we can take this back. Individuals can come up. Professor Sawenge came up with all of this. You don't have to be a dean or an HOD to bring up an idea. And I know the HOD of food science and microbiology is also working out something, and we believe shortly we'll be able to come up with that too. And for Dr. Okocha, I believe you're also working on something. Yes, shortly, because we want to see how to capture everything before our dear students start examinations. Because once you commence exams, we cannot be bringing us here anymore. And every faculty and staff will be loaded with assignments and responsibility. And then again, our dear man from the medical center, want to thank you for being part of this. And we believe, are you in SDG 3, health and well-being? Or yes, you're also in SDG 3. Okay, and I know, thank God your medical director is now the team lead for SDG 3. We look forward to more presentations from the platform of SDG 3. We have not received any, except for the one, Dr. Ndako. Yes, Professor Ndako is working on something. And I know that will count for SDG 3. And those in the gender women, we are yet to receive something for SDG 5. Yeah, gender equality. So we look forward to all of this as we move on in driving and sustaining our world-class status. We believe not just sustaining it, the next round of ranking will push us forward. Yes, we are looking towards topping Covenant University. Nothing stops us. Nothing stops us unless we want to stop ourselves. We are ready at management level. We are ready to push on. So thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day. God bless you. Any other? Okay, so we'll take the photograph here. Jimmy photo, at the end of it, we'll take the general photograph here instead of going out there. Thank you.
A round of applause again for my delectable and amiable Vice Chancellor, Professor Charity Aremo. You can't catch her unawares. I tell you. Thank you very much, Ma. Permit me to recognize and introduce the set of delectable and amiable students that worked in while the program was ongoing. May I introduce to you from Mass Communication Department, the kings and queens of 200 level, I think. Yeah, I guess they're all 200 level. Mass Communication students, they are students. There was an interrupted call, but they heeded. You will all receive golden calls before the end of this month in the name of Jesus. Thank you very much. I also want to recognize Mr. Tunde there. It's a pathfinder. Can you just wave your hands? Yes, you're most welcome. Thank you very much. All other persons have been introduced, and then I don't want to do the walk up there with LUCRID, who I'm going to be bringing up for the vote of thanks. He was here before, he's going to come again. He's never tired of coming. Please, a round of applause for the man, the machine that's been in charge of this program. Please clap for Dr. Adeolu Adediran. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, DME. I was just wondering why bringing me on board again. The Vice Chancellor has actually given a good wrap-up. You wonder why or what I want to say again. Okay. We just want to humbly appreciate everyone. Of course, we can agree with me that the 22nd LUCRID webinar, or what I call a masterclass presentation, is actually loaded and actually is a robust one. You can agree with me on that platform. I want to sincerely appreciate all our online participants, particularly our presenters. In fact, Professor Walter Jiaoku from University of Nairobi in Kenya. I want to deeply appreciate Mrs. Susan So I want to deeply appreciate Mrs. Susan Welts from South Africa. Also our own Professor Grace Oluwashola Dr. Shaw from UI. Also want to appreciate all our online participants, particularly Barrister Ogbo, an associate professor as well from Kwasu, that is Dr. Adeumi, and a host of others, Oladipo Sheun, and quite numerous. We have a great number of participants online that they actually joined us and they stay tuned throughout the course of these masterclass presentations. I want to also appreciate all our principal officers that are here seated, as well as those who join us even from their offices. Particularly want to extend our appreciation to the team lead for, or let me just say, the commander-in-chief of the Landmark University Research Ethics Group, who I call Professor Osewinge, who deeply appreciate you for this unique and giant stride. Also want to appreciate all our faculty and staff here present and those who join us online. Want to also appreciate our UG. Oh, deeply appreciate you, kings and queens, highly seated, and also our PG students. We want to say thank you to every one of us. On this note, we want to quickly bring on board for the closing remark our dean, the dean of the College for the closing prayer, rather, the Dean of College of Pure and Applied Sciences, never mind, Professor A. Adebi, as he takes us with the closing prayer. Thank you, sir.
Let's rise as we pray. Father, we thank you for the success of this webinar. We appreciate you for the knowledge that you have, that everyone has received. Lord, accept our thanks in the name of Jesus. Lord, we pray as we go, your presence shall go with us in the name of Jesus. And you shall grant everyone that is part of this webinar to make use of the knowledge that has been acquired in the name of Jesus. Thank you and thank you, Lord. In Jesus' mighty name, we are praying. Surely, God's goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our life, and we shall dwell forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you all very much. We'll be having a session of photographs now, and that will be done right here in this hall.